YouTube channel.
The time by Caracris is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. Big growth for micro businesses. Jamaica and Guyana deepen ties, and Europe moves to rebuild Ukraine. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Friday, June 26, 2026. I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, the Jamaican government says it wants micro businesses to grow into the country's next major corporate giants as it pushes to build a new generation of high-growth companies. Also ahead, Guyana and Jamaica move to deepen economic integration, signing new bilateral agreements to expand cooperation across key sectors. And later, the European Union has launched a major new fund to accelerate Ukraine's economic recovery as reconstruction efforts gain momentum. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break. The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with a bold push to transform thousands of small Jamaican businesses into the country's future economic giants. Jamaica's government is betting that the country's newest capital market platform could help create the next generation of major corporate success stories. Industry Minister Senator Aubin Hill says the newly launched Jamaica Stock Exchange micro market is designed to help small businesses evolve into some of the country's future economic powerhouses. Hill told CBX Business News that early-stage investor capital has historically played a critical role in transforming small enterprises into major companies, pointing to JMMB Group Limited as one example.
The story is told that JMMB was one of, I don't know, 8, 10 company that had some investor capital. That was patient capital. It was what we now call angel capital. Well, the one that I know that came out of that is JMMB. But if you were one of the investors and you invested in 8 of those companies and JMMB became what it is, you don't even have to remember the other 7 because you get paid back by what one very successful one has happened.
Yes.
That is what happens in life. Not every single one is going to be a grace. Many of them are going to be successful in their own right, but 1 or 2 of them will step out, become a grace, become a Jamaica Brothers Group,
Yes.
or Wisinco, which was a family company, is now a major corporate entity. And so that's what we expect to happen.
Senator Hill adds, Jamaica could begin seeing a new generation of fast-growing businesses emerge within the next 5 years as entrepreneurs gain access to long-term investment capital.
The outcomes that we see really and truly through the junior market.
Yes.
If you go back 5 years, 7 years ago, well, in the last 10 years, since the junior market has been in operation, 10 or so years, we have brought in about 1.5 billion Jamaican dollars to invest in companies. When you go through those companies, you're going to see some of them, some of the names that you now know, like household names, came from there. That's what's going to happen in 5 years. And I say 5 years and not 10 because in the next 5 years, Jamaica, God willing, yes, we know we have environmental issues like hurricanes and so on. But God willing, and we pray for his blessings, that in the next 5 years, Jamaica is going to change so substantially and so visibly good that many of these companies that are now starting on the micro exchange 5 years from now, with the growth that we expect in this economy, will be household names, and you should invest in some of them.
That was Jamaica's Investment Minister, Senator Aubin Hill. The Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, JMEA, says with energy prices nearing 40 US cents per kilowatt hour, manufacturers are being forced to operate under some of the highest electricity costs, not just in the Caribbean, but anywhere in the world. At the association's annual general meeting on Wednesday, JMEA President Catherine Silvera notes energy costs remain the #1 concern for manufacturers.
If you ask any manufacturer in this room what keeps them up at night, I think electricity is probably the first thing they say. Our objective remains clear: lower energy costs, targeting globally competitive rates, expanded access to renewable solutions, improved reliability, and policies that support industrial competitiveness. Because every dollar saved on energy is a dollar that we can reinvest in people, innovation, production, and growth.
In response, the association informed CBX Business News it has intensified its lobbying efforts, establishing a dedicated energy committee led by Deputy President Cecil Foster to push for sweeping reforms across Jamaica's energy sector.
So in talking to our members, we have decided to form at the JMEA a energy committee, which I chair. That energy committee's mandate is to listen to the pain points of our members and to come up with solutions, so how we can help them to alleviate the pain. So we have spoken to the government, we have met with JPS, we have met with Dominican Republic, and we have met with other stakeholders, and we have looked at what can be done to make the energy sector produce energy at a lower cost.
Foster says the association has also developed a 4-point strategy aimed at reducing Jamaica's persistently high energy costs.
One is to include more renewables in our energy mix. Renewables that the government says that they want to get to 50% of renewables by 2030. We think that's a great goal, but we need them to accelerate the process so we can have the benefit of lower cost. One, we need to also allow or make available fundings so the individuals who want to do for business or for their homes solar systems can acquire those solar systems at a reasonable rate and so on. We also want the government to look at the electric vehicle market, and for all the importation of goods, vehicles and so on, between now and 2032, they need to import only electric vehicles. So I would say between now and then, half of their fleet should be electric vehicles. And the other one is for them to also look at hydro and possibly nuclear.
That was JMEA Deputy President Cecil Foster speaking with CBX Business News. The Bank of Jamaica BOJ is signaling that further monetary policy action could be on the table if global economic pressures continue intensifying, with Governor Richard Biles warning that Jamaica now faces growing risks on both inflation and economic growth. Speaking on the central bank's latest podcast, Biles says the worsening conflict in the Middle East is creating uncertainty that could force the bank to adjust its monetary policy.
Bank of Jamaica is doing exactly what a central bank should do in a moment like this. We are being transparent. We are holding the rate steady. We are pursuing a responsible foreign exchange policy with surgical tools rather than blunt ones. We are limiting the pass-through of imported price increases. We are watching the data, and we are prepared, and I want to underline this, to adjust the monetary policy stance if the conflict in the Middle East drags on, and we start to see sustained price increases that go beyond the supply shock.
In other news, the cost of producing goods in Jamaica continued climbing in May, with new data showing manufacturers are facing another sharp increase in production prices, adding fresh pressure across the country's industrial sector. According to the latest figures released by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, the producer price index for the manufacturing sector rose 2.7% in May, driven largely by higher costs in food production and petroleum-related products. Statin says the biggest increases came from the food, beverages, and tobacco category, which climbed 2.9%, alongside a 5.8% increase in refined petroleum products, signaling continued cost pressures for producers across key industries. Meanwhile, the mining and quarrying sector recorded a more modest 0.4% increase during the month. On a year-over-year basis, manufacturing producer prices are now up 10.2%, while mining and quarrying prices have surged 28%, reflecting persistent inflationary pressure building deeper within Jamaica's production economy. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 103 stocks, of which 42 advanced, 44 declined, and 17 traded firm. Leading the winners are Stanley Motor Ordinary Shares, Cargo Handlers, Image Plus Consultants, and 138 Student Living Jamaica. While leading the losers are MPC Caribbean Clean Energy, Sterling Investments USD, ISP Finance Services, and Epley Limited. The main index advanced by 753.38 points to close at 352,580.53 points. The junior market index advanced by 55.25 points to close at 3,080.01 points. It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. In today's Market Education feature, we're talking about jumbo loans. A jumbo loan is a type of mortgage used to finance properties that exceed the borrowing limit set for conventional home loans. These loans are often used to purchase luxury homes or properties in high-value real estate markets. Because larger amounts are being borrowed, jumbo loans usually come with stricter requirements, including stronger credit scores and lower debt-to-income ratios. That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, Tease the Senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. Guyana and Jamaica are moving to deepen economic integration after signing a series of new agreements targeting financial services, energy, agriculture, and security cooperation. The package includes an updated Economic Cooperation Accord and a new Memoranda of Understanding designed to expand trade, investment, and institutional collaboration between the two CARICOM states. Speaking during the signing ceremony earlier today, President of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali, identified the Financial Services Agreement as one of the most significant developments, with plans to deepen cooperation between both countries' financial systems.
The Jamaican financial system has a lot of maturity that the region can learn and benefit from. That is why we are particularly very pleased that we are able to sign this MOU on financial services, given the fact that we are now proceeding on a junior stock exchange. The expertise of Jamaica, having our insurance company more integrated, our financial systems more integrated, our banking system more integrated, our means of settlement more integrated. This is what that opens up the opportunity for. And there's a lot of work in the financial architecture and system that will emerge out of these engagements.
Ali says both countries are also establishing a joint energy working group to identify projects capable of delivering long-term economic benefits across the region.
In energy, the opportunities are enormous. We have to scope our competitive advantage, your infrastructure and our infrastructure, and to find a way in which we can have a common vehicle through which both of us benefit, but also the region benefit. And we're committed to having a working group examine this closely and to come up with recommendations and options as to how we can collaborate in the energy sector.
That was President of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali. St. Kitts and Nevis is preparing to open up investment opportunities to ordinary citizens through a new government bond program with entry starting at just 500 Eastern Caribbean dollars. Speaking during an interview on Thursday, Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew says the initiative forms part of the government's Sustainable Island State agenda and is designed to help more citizens build wealth through access to investment opportunities that have historically been out of reach.
That is why we have come up with the Aspire program, the bond which we are going to launch so that ordinary people can buy bonds for the first time at a cost of $500 so that a man who is even working not for that much can say, boy, I'm going to put this aside and buy some bonds so he can benefit from a higher interest rate. That is part and parcel of exposing our people to different types of opportunities to build wealth.
Drew says the program also represents a shift towards greater financial participation, encouraging citizens to generate income through investments.
Our people will have access to, I would say, the opportunities to grow wealth and not just depend on a salary, but understand how stocks works, how bonds work, how investment works, so that they can grow wealth while, they are sleeping.
Meanwhile, businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis have been shielded from millions of dollars in electricity costs under a government energy subsidy program designed to offset high global fuel prices. Prime Minister Drew revealed that since November 2022, the government has absorbed more than 36 million EC dollars in fuel variation charges on behalf of commercial customers.
Do you know how much money this government has paid on behalf of these private businesses and companies? A total of $36,106,875.50. Just paying the FVC, the fuel variation cost. If we had not introduced this in November again, in 2022, this is how much the companies would have had to pay. The government bore that cost to give private businesses a real ease. It's a serious number, 36,106,000. $875.50.
That was Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew. Drew says the support forms part of a wider strategy to help businesses remain competitive while the country expands renewable energy capacity and works to lower long-term electricity costs. In other news, the Bahamas' opposition is challenging the government's projected budget surplus, warning that the country's fiscal position may be weaker than official estimates suggest. Making his contribution to the 2026-27 budget debate in the Senate, opposition Senator Ellsworth Johnson questioned whether revenue targets needed to deliver the surplus are realistic given current economic conditions.
The Minister of Finance has projected a budget surplus of $223.1 million for the upcoming fiscal year, driven by revenue projections of $4.4 billion against estimated expenditure of $4.1 billion. On its face, that sounds like a reasonable fiscal management, but there are serious questions about whether these projections are grounded in reality. The government's own revenue figures through the first 9 months of the fiscal year raises questions about whether the full-year target are achievable. Bahamians are entitled to ask whether these projections reflect a genuine assessment of our country's fiscal position.
Johnson argued that the government's fiscal projections fail to fully account for outstanding payments owed to businesses, vendors, and individuals.
It has been widely reported that government owes significant sums to vendors, businesses, and individuals who perform work for the state and have not been paid. When a government points out a surplus while leaving its creditors unpaid, that is not fiscal responsibility. It is an incomplete picture. It is a phantom surplus, one that exists in the projections but not in the pockets of people who are owed.
That was opposition Senator in the Bahamas, Ellsworth Johnson. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 19 securities, of which 4 advanced, 4 declined, and 11 traded firm. Today's winners are Unilever Caribbean, Republic Financial Holdings, First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, and West Indian Tobacco Company, while leading the losers are Trinidad and Tobago NGL, Agostini, Massey Holdings, and National Enterprises. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index advanced by 2.39 points to close at 1,430.78. The Composite Index also advanced, but by 1.24 points to close at 987.67. The cross-listed index remained at 71.84, with the SME index remaining at 86.92. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next. Welcome back. In international news, the European Union has officially launched a major investment fund aimed at accelerating Ukraine's economic recovery and attracting private sector capital into key sectors of the economy. Speaking at the Ukraine Recovery Conference on Thursday, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the fund is now operational and will direct investments towards strategic areas, including clean energy, infrastructure, and high-growth businesses. Backed by the EU and partner countries, the fund is expected to mobilize up to 500 million euros in investment this year, with a long-term target of 1 billion.
Today I can say that fund is ready to go. It will invest in some of the most strategic sectors of Ukraine's future, from clean energy to infrastructure to the high-growth companies that will drive Ukraine's economy in the decades ahead. The fund is backed by the European Union, Poland, France, Germany, and Italy. It can mobilize up to €500 million still this year, with the aim of reaching €1 billion over time. So public capital will take the first share of the risk. And this creates the confidence needed to attract private investment of scale.
That was President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Meanwhile, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization says rising defense spending across Europe is generating major economic benefits in the United States. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says growing defense investment by European allies is providing a significant boost to the American economy. Speaking alongside U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday, Rutte says increased European investment and defense procurement are currently supporting nearly 195,000 jobs in the United States.
This is your evidence. Then, when it comes to jobs, look here. In total, 195,000 jobs being supported by investments. Investments from European companies into the United States, 83,000 jobs supported by that. 112,000 jobs created by the fact that Europeans are massively, about half of all their defense spending when it comes to defense industrial output is spent in the United States. 112,000 jobs. Last year they spent $54 billion on US defense industrial output. There is now an order catalog, an order backlog of $300 billion. So $300 billion of defense spending from Europeans, buying this in the US over the next couple of years, which is already on the order book. Last year, 54 billion, a total now order book of 300 billion, totally almost 200,000. These are real jobs, real people.
Rutte also warned that military demand continues to outpace production capacity across both sides of the Atlantic. He says stockpiles depleted by support for Ukraine must now be replenished, requiring a rapid expansion in defense manufacturing.
First of all, to get all of this done, we had to increase the defense industrial output. There is a big problem. The problem is that both in the United States and in Europe we are not producing enough. Our stockpiles have to be replenished because of the war in Ukraine and what we do there, and for all the other reasons.
That was NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. And in Canada, Canada's government says it is tightening immigration policy while continuing to position the economy for long-term growth. Speaking at a year-end review of his government's performance on Thursday, Prime Minister Mark Carney says the North American nation has taken back control of immigration. He pointed to a one-third decline in asylum claims alongside a 50% drop in temporary foreign worker arrivals.
We've taken back control of immigration. Asylum claims are down by a third. Temporary foreign workers arrivals down by half. And international student arrivals down by 60%. We can now carefully rebuild a sustainable immigration system consistent with Canadian values.
Carney also highlighted the country's fiscal position, saying the government has reduced the growth rate of operating spending from more than 8% annually to less than 2% while maintaining key social programs.
We have reinforced the strongest fiscal position in the G7 by cutting operating spending growth from over 8% a year to less than 2%, all while boosting our vital social programs. Housing costs and rental affordability are improving, with the rent-to-income ratio falling to its lowest level in over 6 years.
That was Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. What you put in is what you get out. What you put in is what you get out. Yeah. Build up your body, boost up your brain. Take on the world now. Say bye-bye pain. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Be good to you. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Distributed by Amalgamated Distributors Limited.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, government wants micro businesses to become Jamaica's next corporate giants. Regionally, Guyana and Jamaica deepen economic integration with new bilateral agreements. And internationally, EU launches major fund to accelerate Ukraine recovery. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.